Hi, I'm Russell Pedersen, manager of the technical support and training team here at Winstone Wallboards. Welcome to the training bay. Today I'm going to take you through the steps on how to repair small holes and scratches and dings in your walls. For this you'll need the following: spatula and bucket for mixing compound, 150mm broad knife, sanding block, preferably 220 grit, a sharp craft knife, 280mm trowel, GIB compound and tape. First thing we want to do is mark out where we're going to cut out this patch. You'll notice it's a similar size to the hole left from a removed power point or light switch. So a similar method is used for replacing a power point. We're going to cut out the hole just with a normal Stanley knife. You'll need to score it a couple of times to get through, and the point is you just want to keep this cut nice and tidy. It's always easier if you make the hole square and even for when we cut our patch. Now that we've taken out our piece, we want to tidy up this edge. Measure the hole so we can cut our patch. Score and snap your patch from a piece of scrap board. Tidy it up so it's going to fit in that hole. See if it fits, but be careful not to lose it down the hole. So now we've cut our patch and it fits. We're going to cut our back blocking strip. Our back blocking strip needs to fit into this hole, but slightly longer, so we've got an edge to glue it to. 120 by 65. And now we've cut our back blocking strip. The little trick is to put a nail through the strip so that we don't lose it down the back of the wall. So we're going to glue this with either Trade Set 20 or Cove Bond. Today I'm going to use Trade Set 20 because it sets really fast. Rip the top off the bag, and I'm going to start with water first and then add the powder. Just add the powder slowly so we don't make up too much. So why we use a GIB compound is it gives you your most reliable paper-to-paper bond. You don't want to make it too stiff, otherwise it won't adhere properly. So now we've mixed our trade set, we're just going to put a little bit on the edges so we can glue it into the hole. Give it a wriggle in to let it settle. And we want to hold it for the first minute or so. So we're just going to let it dry for an hour or so before we put our patch in. Now our compound is set and our back block strip is firmly in place, we're going to put our patch in. We just need to poke our nail back through the wall. Because it's a painted finish, we want to prepare the surface for our stopping compound. We just do that with a bit of sandpaper, give it a rough up. Let's put the patch in now. Ideally, we want to use the same compound as we use for the back blocking strip. Don't put too much on, just enough to get a good key into that surface behind. Give it a little wriggle. So now it's time for our stopping. We're going to use GIB RocTape, or you can use paper tape, and we're going to use an air drying compound. I'm going to put in a thin layer of our air drying compound, and I'm going to put the tape on top. Just push the tape into the compound and pull out any excess compound. And just give it a thin layer over the top. The trick is, don't put too much on and don't play with the compound too much. While we're at it, we're going to fix our little gouge up here. With a gouge like this, we want to prepare the surface by sanding it. So scuff and sand the area and take out any loose bits or loose paper. With a scratch or gouge like this, you don't want to put too much compound in, just enough to sit proud of that cut or that gouge. So that's our base coat done. We're going to let it dry for a day or two, depending on your weather and the humidity. But once it's dry, we're going to do 1, maybe 2 coats of compound over the top of that. It doesn't matter if there's any excess blobs on the wall, because we're going to scrape this flat before we do our next coat. And we're back now that it's dry. You'll notice there's some ridges and lumps that we've got running through here. That's okay, because we're going to use our plastering trowel, run that over the surface, and we're going to take those ridges and lines off to prepare it for our second coat. So a little trick is you don't want to dig the trowel corners in too hard, otherwise you'll end up gouging your surface again. We just want a light scuff over the top with the edge of that trowel. I'm going to use the same compound that we used for our base coat. The plan is get a decent amount of coverage over this area and feather it out quite far so we don't notice a lump later. As you're applying the compound, you may experience what's called pinholes. Pinholes are tiny little air bubbles coming through. If you do get those, you just want to use a cross-hatching motion to cover over that area. If you're still getting it, you may need to let it dry and do a third coat. So we've got a good amount of coverage on this one. We've got it feathered out to the edges. It's not built up too much. The trick is don't play with it too much. Can actually muck it up. With an air drying compound, you want to avoid using a hairdryer or a fan heater to dry it out. We want natural airflow to come past this area and dry it out, and that will give us a better adhesion for our next coat. I'm happy with this. I'm going to let it dry between 12 to 24 hours. All right, now our top coat's dry. We're going to sand it. Just to keep it easy, I'm going to use a sanding pad. These are readily available from your local merchant. Ideally, you want to get about 220 grit. When we're sanding, we're going to start in the middle and work our way out. Gentle circular motions. Don't want to sand too hard. We don't want to gouge that surface. And then we're going to finish off with a gentle cross-hatching motion. And we want to pay particular attention to the edges of the compound where it's feathered out. Now these edges, we don't want to leave a lip between the painted surface and the compound. We want to gently sand that out. During the sanding process, it's sometimes hard to see if you've got any lumps or bumps. So sometimes it's a good idea to feel the patch. See if you can feel any lumps or bumps that need taking off. Just be careful not to take it down to your base coat layer. We want to keep that surface layer intact. Feels pretty good. Just give it a dust off before we paint. All right, let's paint. All right, it's looking pretty good. You'll want to do a second coat, and you may want to do the whole wall section just so it all blends in. And that's how you repair a small hole in your wall.